Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to unanimously consent to enter into the record a Washington Post article from today that headline, Schiff's claim that the whistleblower has a statutory right to anonymity received 3 Pinocchios. Pinocchios meaning that, well, we all know what Pinocchios mean. The interpretation of that would be that, 2 interpretations. The one that my colleagues on the other side would argue is that we're trying to protect the whistleblower. An equally valid and credible interpretation is that there's something to hide, and that this unlevel playing field that's been created by the chairman's insistence that there is a statutory right to anonymity maintains that unlevel playing field and the advantages that gives them. Now, the chairman also announces at every hearing that he will not tolerate, and I agree with him, any witness intimidation, any threats, or any issues of trying to bully a witness. Ambassador Sondland, have you, your family, or your businesses received any threats or reprisals or attempts to harm you in any way?
Many.
Could you give us an example or 2?
We have countless emails, apparently, to my wife. Our properties are being picketed and boycotted.
Let's explore that one. Our own colleague, Congressman Earl Blumenauer from Oregon, has in fact called for a boycott of your hotel chain or your hotels in Oregon. I'm assuming he believes that will harm you to the point that you will then be bullied into doing whatever he wants done. Now, my colleagues and I know that using the word bully and Earl Blumenauer in the same sentence is a bit over the top. But nevertheless, he intended to harm you and your businesses. Is that what you would surmise?
That's my understanding.
And that the boycotts, his call for boycott gave rise to demonstrations in front of your hotels that made your customers have to weave in and out of the demonstrators to try to actually get into the hotels?
As I understand, they're going on as we speak.
Well, the words are better put by a couple of other Oregonians. It says Congressman Blumenauer's irresponsible attempt to hurt a homegrown business that supports hundreds of jobs in our local economy is just shameful and ought to be an outrage to all Oregonians. Some fellow named McDermott. And then a lady named Ellen Carmichael, who I believe works for you, said, we are saddened to have our Congressman Earl Blumenauer call for a boycott that would put the livelihoods of thousands of his constituents in peril. The attack on our employees is unwarranted. And I couldn't agree more, Mr. Ambassador. Mr. Blumenauer should not be using the vast influences that we as members of Congress have to bully you and your businesses and to harm the hundreds or thousands of employees that operate in your business by trying to take business away from you, to force you into doing something that they wanted you to do, which is actually testify, and you've actually done that. But that's a shame for that. And I'm hopeful that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will join me in saying, Mr. Blumenauer, you really shouldn't be using your congressional influence to try to bully and threaten a witness before these proceedings. That is just wrong. I'm going to look forward to my colleague's response, and I yield back.
Yeah. Thank you, Congressman.
Ms. Speier.
I was somewhat humored by your request that Mr. Blumenauer not bully to get something done when all we're talking about is the president bullying to get something he wants done. But having said that, I'd like to clarify one point about the whistleblower protection from the article that Mr. Conway just provided. The law reads, expressly restricts the Inspector General's office from disclosing whistleblowers' identities. It says, quote, the Inspector General shall not disclose the identity of the employee without the consent of the employee unless the Inspector General determines that such disclosure is unavoidable during the course of the investigation or the disclosure is made to an official of the Department of Justice responsible for determining whether a prosecution should be undertaken. Unquote. That appears to be the lone statutory restriction on disclosing a whistleblower's identity, applicable only to the Inspector General's office. We found no court rulings on whether whistleblowers have a right to anonymity under the ICWPA or related statutes. Vladeck said it is nonetheless a best practice to avoid disclosure of the Ukraine whistleblower's identity, given the concerns about retaliation. McCulloch said, we've stepped into bizarro land when senior policymakers are trying to yank a CIA employee into the public spotlight in retaliation for making a whistleblowing complaint, especially when they are credible threats to that employee's personal safety. And I don't know why our colleagues on the other side of the aisle
Does your lady yield?
No, I'm afraid I only have 3 minutes and I have some other issues, but thank you.
Well, the end of the
Mr.
article does go through that and also says it's 3 Pinocchios in spite of that conversation.
Well, the President of the United States has 5 Pinocchios on a daily basis, so let's not go there. Ambassador Sondland, in your deposition, you lamented, quote, "I was truly disappointed that the State Department prevented me at the last minute from testifying earlier on October 8th, 2019. But your issuance of a subpoena has supported my appearance here today, and I'm pleased to provide the following testimony." So it is clear that the White House, the State Department, did not want you to testify at that deposition. Is that correct?
That's correct.